So welcome everybody to the Sonoma Spiel. My name is Tim and we're here talking all things in Sonoma Valley. Just a quick reminder to everybody, grape harvest has started, and now is a great time to start coming to visit Sonoma, and we'll be hearing another date about harvesting grapes and what it's like. But today, everybody, very special guest, comes to us all the way from Marin, the county to our south, but he's been all around the world. He's a travel journalist, but more like he's a travel facilitator, and it's Jake Steinman. Jake, good afternoon. Hello.
Hello. For purposes of this podcast, you can call me Jake Steinman.
Steinman for the Spiel. Thank you, Jake. Yes, I'm going to do that with everybody that comes in now with the S sense. And the Spiel, I should say, Jose in my office helped me name this podcast because we didn't have a good name for it. And some people haven't really caught on to the Spiel, but I love, which is both a German and a Yiddish word for Spiel, right? To talk or to chat or whatever. So I'm glad that you...
Bloviate.
To bloviate. You were in the right spot. We are in the right spot. But Jake, tell me a bit... What is the TravelAbility and TravelAbility? First of all, what is your company and what does it do?
It's called TravelAbility, and what we do is we work with the travel industry to help make them more accessible for people with disabilities. And when you say
disabilities, can you define what that means?
Well, we sort of focus on the primary disabilities. Okay. And so, according to the CDC, 20%, close to 20% of the population has a disability.
Got it.
And, so we're focusing on, primarily mobility, wheelchair users, people who are blind, deafness, and families with autistic children.
Got it.
Those four areas.
Is this a field that you've always been in? Or are you kind of new to doing this? Or
well, I sort of came in, I was talking about coming into the back door, the side door. I think I came into this through the window. And so what happened was I my office is in Sausalito, and in 2018, I got an award from the City of Sausalito proclaiming my company, North American Journeys, Travel Agent of the Year. And it sounds like a travel agency, but we weren't a travel agent.
Right.
We were basically a media and event company that facilitated tour operator travel and digital marketing efforts through conferences and speed dating shows and a couple newsletters and a website. And we had a bunch of projects like that we just sort of built as a portfolio. And but during the course so I got this award and I thought, well, I guess we sound like a travel agent. And they've all been kind of disintermediated by OTAs, by
online travel agencies and people booking online. Yep.
But during the course of that year, for the next 6 months, people started knocking on my door asking for help planning travel. And if you know that, in this day and age with these online travel agents, if they're going cold calling a travel agent, they've got to be pretty desperate.
Right.
And so that sort of seeped out into some local directory or media, that award. And half of them had somebody with a disability. And so I realized, usually it was some grandfather or father who had a disability of some kind, and they wanted to go somewhere, and they needed to know if, what was a good place to go for a wheelchair user.
So it's like the multi-generational travel, traveling with grandma and grandpa.
And I could see, and they were the ones paying for the trip, and they didn't care what it cost. There was no, they weren't budget oriented. And I thought, well, this could be the future of small group travel, because, and so I looked at this, and then I went on, so I was in the negotiating stage of selling everything. And so I thought this could be, an interesting area because baby boomers were aging into a disability, and I'm one of them. And I thought, well, this is probably going to be, by just pure demographics, a big category.
Right.
And so I may as well just, and I was looking for something else to sink my teeth into at that time.
I like this. This is a very boomer thing to do. You have your own business, you see a market to do, and then you realize how big it is. And then, Jake, you're not going to retire. You're never.
No, I'm not. I'm a failure. I'm a retirement loser. Is what I am.
You're also a legend in the travel business, which is kind of funny.
Well,
people don't. You're well known. So you had people come to you and say, Jake, you're a travel agent.
North American Journeys is on the door, and they were knocking and just saying, and
they were literally asking you to book travel.
They were asking me where to go. They just wanted information, and just before just
because the city decided to give you a plaque.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sausalito or whatever. Yeah. Good job.
And it's sort of a dubious award, really, is what it was.
Right.
So,
right.
But that's sort of,
I just love the entrepreneurial part that you realize that there's a market for this and there's a need for it.
It's just kind of like, it doesn't take a genius for pattern recognition to understand that this is where it's going. And
right.
So just so I ended up, looking at it, and I went on a listening tour, and I had a lot of contacts in the travel industry, and I was, and so I contacted them, a lot of the destinations, because really when they were, you filter it down, what they were asking about is where can they go?
Right.
And then what can they do and where they can stay? And just see, those were the three things.
Right.
And so that was all destination oriented, right? Because they're the ones who could tell you where to stay and what to do.
Right.
And so it dawned on me that I had all those, I had a network of contacts that could provide this. So I contacted that network, and I had my, Tom Barry, my newsletter editor, do some research on disability, and I sent Betsy, who you know probably, to Brussels to a disability travel show. Called it was called Destinations for All, and it was a worldwide show with governments, mostly governments,
right,
European governments, talking about what they're doing around accessibility. And she brought back, an entire, box of brochures and what's going on there. And then I went on this listening tour, and then Tom did a research, and he found all these sort of travel bloggers with different disabilities.
But they're kind of not unified, right? They're different.
No, everything's, nobody knows anybody else. It's all completely disparate.
Right. There wasn't probably a current one spot for information.
There wasn't. And so, so this is, so I was fortunate in as much as I had just sold everything. And I didn't really need to take a salary.
Right.
And so so I could probably just do this and just learn it. And so that's kind of how it happened. But that's why I'm saying I came in through an open window.
Right. Fell right into what it is.
Fell right into this. And so I think that, so that's how I got into it.
Okay.
And then once I did conduct a listening tour, I understood that there are two things that I think people really need to understand. One is that there's an ADA that has provided some baseline for physical infrastructure,
the American
like ramps,
American with
parking.
Disabilities Act, which was passed, I think, in the 70s or 80s.
It's passed in 90.
90?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
So it's 32 years old.
Okay.
So just so I started looking into that act, and it took them about a year and a half to draft it, because when you think about it, every disability has its own spectrum, right?
Right.
So there's somebody that's that's basically on crutches, and there's somebody that's in a custom fitted wheelchair,
fully motorized wheelchair kind of thing,
fully motorized power wheelchair, and then there are people that so that law was written for the median. So
Got it.
So half the people. So for half the people, the ADA is not accessible enough, and for the other half, it's too accessible. And so just I realized, but there was no ADA for information, and so this No,
right? 1990s.
No. This is when I realized this.
Oh, okay.
Well, that was
right. I said
the ADA was
a long time ago.
Internet, right? But what I realized was that destinations, their primary job is to provide information through their website on what consumers can, what visitors
come
can
see what's here, go eat here, go there,
and
right.
what and kind of and they had. relationships with the business community. It's just like you. You've got relationships with the business community. You've got relationships with locals, and you have relationships with visitors, and and with elected officials.
Right.
Those three things. So anyway, so that so I realized that, and I thought, and I started talking to these disabled bloggers and a lot of these advocates, and their approach has always been to be an activist and to complain and to fight for their rights, which they should be doing. And I understood that, but the travel industry doesn't react well to that.
No.
And so I thought, well, here we have kind of a commercial form of advocacy,
right?
Because they all understand that there's this big train of baby boomers aging into a disability, and I had a lot of data that basically supported that.
And that's what I like. You have education, and just for people listening, your website is TravelAbility.net.
Right.
It's more for people who work in the industry in travel, but I'm sure you also have information in here for people who themselves need information. But just for people who are listening here,
they wouldn't know. We don't promote it. To them,
it's kind of
we're promoting it. Basically.
You're educating the suppliers, what we say in the business, or the destinations.
We're a hub for them.
Got it. And
we're a B2B hub for accessibility and travel.
What kind of information, what kind of surprised you as you got into this, that is something that people who need the services, it's very evident to them, but somebody that would supply, a hotel or a restaurant or a winery, like, this is so evident, how can you not know this? Or do you ever have any of those aha moments?
Yeah, there are a couple of them, and I'll just tell you, one of which is really how easy it is to be accessible, and how an attitude can deflect, kind of a negative situation with just training about an attitude about empathy. And I was thinking about this because we're in the hospitality industry.
Right, that's our business.
Anyway,
that's our business.
That should be, our ethos.
Right, exactly.
Right? And so I was thinking about that, and I thought, this can't be, and then I started talking to, we put on a conference and we invited, and it was a travel industry conference about disability, not a disability industry conference about travel.
Right.
So the only people who were disabled were the speakers.
The panelists, the speakers.
The speakers who had the lived experiences, and who, and they were either travel agents or they were bloggers or they, but with different disabilities. And what I realized what it came down to is that people felt afraid of them. I mean, and I was that way. When I see somebody in a wheelchair, or when I see someone with a white cane, or you don't know really how to react.
Right.
And so
you kind of go into panic mode.
Yeah.
And like, I'm just not going to engage.
Awkwardness.
This is the easiest way to do it. I'm not going to engage.
And just so I realized that, that they're just people like everybody else once you start talking to them. And when you meet them, you realize how amazing they really are. And I don't mean the inspirational side, although that works too, but just how they're role models for other people that have their same disabilities, because they're showing what can be done.
These people that have traveled with, they're in a wheelchair, or they're blind,
so I realized that. And then the other aha moment I have to tell you was at a wedding that I went to. And I was, and this is outside of Sequoia National Park, and it was, like a Northern California, wedding, and so I was sitting
appropriately hippie enough?
Reception.
Yes, good.
And I'm sitting at the reception, and one of the other people were 6 strangers and my wife, and one of the other people said, well, why don't we just have a little icebreaker? Everybody just go around the table, who you know here.
Okay.
Why are you here? Where you're from.
Right.
And what do you do?
Okay.
Okay. So the first person on my left, that couple on my left, that guy was an accidental philanthropist.
Okay.
And he had a pool cleaning company and inherited $10 million with the stipulation that if he gave 3 of it away, he could keep the other 7. And he was looking for If he, excuse me, it's the other way around. If he gave 7 of it away.
Okay, he keeps it doesn't matter. It's like Brewster's Millions. Okay.
So he was looking for ways to do that.
Okay.
And trying to understand, and he was kind of a blue collar person.
Right. This is his first time having a lot of money to give away.
And so the person across from me was an entrepreneur who'd started 4 companies and sold them, and his wife was head of wealth management for Morgan Stanley in San Francisco.
Boy, you run in some nice circles there, Jake. I'm going to tell you.
And the person on my left was a world-renowned photographer for National Geographic. And then it got to me, arguably the least accomplished person at the table. And I had just put on TravelAbility in Tampa. And I came back and I just said, well, I just produced a conference to help the travel industry become more accessible for people with disability.
Right.
And suddenly, I was the most interesting person at the table. They were just bombarding me with questions about disability and all these, and how I got into this, just like you, and just and then I thought, I was trying to think, what's going on here?
Right.
And I realized it's because they thought I was a better person than I really am. Oh. And so I got into it for this problem.
You got in there, right.
But I realized this. So anybody who gets involved in and this has happened, people have told me who are allies, who are not disabled, it's like if you got involved in this with Sonoma and you just said, okay, we're going to go on a campaign to educate people in the industry, and your elected officials would think you would have cachet with so many people. It's just like, so I realized, the destinations get beaten up all the time by hoteliers and all this. And I realized that what I realized is that it's not political.
Right.
And it's not divisive. And it's just something that people feel out of, certain empathy.
But you brought up an excellent point, is that people age into this in that, you don't know until you get a little bit older, like you could be in a wheelchair one day. And you still want to be active. And that could happen to you. So I think a certain level of empathy occurs when you realize there are people who are born with disabilities and they're in wheelchairs or other, mobility aids their whole life. But there's other people that eventually you realize, I'm not that far away from having something happen that I need that, but I still want to be active and still want to do stuff. And then you realize the world wasn't really set up for this. We have made a huge mistake in how we've made doors that are impossible to open. Or my visitor center, which has steep steps to get up, which drives me nuts because it was built in 1913. There's all sorts of different problems that we haven't thought of until we really have to think about it. So I think you're in a good spot, Jake, in that you're advocating for things that are going to be really needed, but more people will finally be aware of it.
Well, what you're saying is really what we've been saying right now, and how I explain it to people is those people who are disabled today, they're going to help you when you become disabled because of old age, age-related disabilities, and they're the ones who are helping you. So if you're accessible for people who are disabled today, you're going to be accessible for yourself when you age into a disability.
So let me ask you this: what are a couple of steps that a business could take to really look and see if they are accessible and start that process so they can make sure their customers are feeling welcomed? Can you think of one, they could go to your website, of course, but are there other?
The first thing is just the training, and developing an attitude around hospitality for people with disabilities who are differently abled, and just and understanding that somebody who's if it's a hotel, there's no ADA law that says that you have to have a counter that's low.
Drives me nuts when the counter's so high.
With the counters
right.
But but the way there's a workaround by having the reception person come around and give that person the key and deal with them in person. So and they are entirely they're grateful that they're doing. It's so rare.
It's just simple training though, right?
Simple training about things that and then there are that training. So we had two attorneys, a defense and a we had a defense lawyer and we had a plaintiff lawyer.
Oh, okay.
And we were.
Did you have them on a panel talking together?
On a panel talking together. And the plaintiff lawyer was really interesting. He said, if my clients had been treated correctly, right, with any kind of empathy, I wouldn't have had any lawsuits.
Interesting.
And so
starting with empathy,
it starts with
is
attitude.
the right answer, because the final answer often becomes like a lawsuit or something like that. But if you started correctly.
The initial thing is a lawsuit, because you've been treated poorly and it's against the law.
Right.
And just so if you had something blatantly against the law, like the ramp crumbled and nobody fixed it.
No one fixes it. Yeah.
Yeah. So just if you had somebody come around and say, well, we'll have our engineers, we'll lift you up over here, and we'll do this, they wouldn't have even reported it. Right. So just So these are the things that the plaintiff lawyer finds that are just gross negligence or disrespect, coupled with disrespect, and so that thing, and then some of the most assets that you have. You think about ramps and you think about beds and doorways and all of this, and just but when the surveys are done with people with disabilities, so the things that bother them are really things you wouldn't even think about, that are, like one of the main problems that they have in hotels is really heavy doors for wheelchair users. I was going to bring this up because the public bathrooms we have in the plaza are great because there's steel doors and whatever. Yeah. But I saw a woman who was on a mobility device, one of those scooter things, having a really hard time opening it. And I'm why is there not? Why don't we think of these things? Because they don't think about it, because they want that door to close itself. Right. And so that's primarily what it is. And the ADA has measured the pound strength of what it takes to close itself. Right. And that's 5. And even as you get older, pushing on a heavy door. We found a video, and it's 4 minutes long, and it shows anybody how they can actually lower the pressure. Oh, you can kind of change a little doohickey on it. Right. You can do it yourself. It's a quarter turn. So there are these like little fixes. Right. That we kind of aggregated. We created this thing called the Accessibility Playbook. Okay. And we aggregated all of the stuff, all the information. How would somebody get that playbook? Is that they can't? They have to be part of something called the Destination Ally Program. Okay. Or so it's a B2B thing, and so it's business a B2B thing. It took us 7 months to compile it, and it has $120,000 worth of other people's information and training in there. Yeah, but it has 75 links to, in addition, it's 40 pages and it has 75 links to videos. So this is really a training program. Plays. Yeah. Okay. Just basically, how they can train and so, but it's things like, and the other thing is like, if somebody is blind and has a guide dog, a service dog, and, and they check into the hotel, if a hotel places a water bowl in that room, along with some information on where the dog can relieve themselves. Right. That's like Ritz-Carlton type service to a blind person. And it's so simple, but it just requires a little bit of training. No. For the front desk. Another niggling problem is trash receptacles in front of an elevator, and people in a wheelchair can't reach the elevator button. Trash. I totally know what you're talking about. Where. Of course, you have to reach over something that's high and above it, and that doesn't make sense. They can't get to it. So that just means moving the trash receptacle, which is a simple. So fix. And then there are other things, and then there are some things that are really big, which we've tried to bring attention to, which is that 80% of the bathrooms in hotels are not accessible. Right. For 80%. To get to the toilet, to get the showers, the sinks are too high. This MMGY study that you were looking at, one of the questions in there was about, hotel bathrooms. How many of you had problems? 86% have had a problem with a hotel
And that's
bathroom.
just like, it should be, it's a private place. It shouldn't have to be asking for help or needing something or even bringing it up. It should be set up that way, right?
It should be set up that way, but it's out of ignorance at the
So the architect's level or the designer level?
It's really at the inspection level. Because the city inspectors inspect all the hotel rooms except for the ADA rooms, which are federally. That's a federal
Seriously?
law. Yeah. So they don't inspect the ADA rooms, and this is a problem that has just gone unnoticed. And we brought it up in our newsletter. This whole thing on shower shaming.
Interesting.
And just because they can't take showers. And this, it's just, so we had, there was a guy, one of these bloggers, a triple amputee, who's obsessed with travel. And he was he lost his limbs when a fuel tank exploded in his car. And he probably had a lawsuit that, he's living. He's taken 900 flights, stayed in 500 hotels, and has meticulously logged everything about the bathrooms. What was it? And he found 4 out of 5 bathrooms had a problem with the shower set. There was a problem with the bath setup. And so that's just a total, that's ignorance, and so we try to bring that up,
right,
and just and now with this survey information,
let me ask you this: are you seeing examples of businesses modifying what they're doing, or people doing it correctly, or some examples you can say, hey, go look at what they've done. This has worked.
Well, basically, what we're doing is we're encouraging destinations to create landing pages.
Okay, on their websites.
On their websites.
Okay.
That's the best thing they can do.
Okay.
And then to survey their businesses.
Right.
To determine, to come up with an assessment of what they have that's accessible.
Right.
Beyond just ramps and parking spaces. And then put all that information up on their website on a landing page, and then iterate that landing page for different disabilities each year.
Got it.
And so just and that evolves into a guide.
Got it.
Multi-page probably guide.
Right, that they can build off of.
With videos and things. And so we have examples of those landing pages.
Okay.
That are, and then there are now radically accessible destinations, who this is, so we've kind of worked with, like Mesa, Arizona, for example, lives in the shadow of Phoenix. And
isn't that their tourism slogan? The shadow.
We live in the shadow.
Almost Phoenix. Mesa, Arizona. No, is it?
Almost Phoenix.
Those poor people. All right, keep going.
Without the professional sports team.
That's right.
But anyway, the CEO there is just, has a son on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, and he is convinced the entire city to get behind this, and it's like the 35th largest city in the country, and people don't know about it, but they're radically accessible. That that
builds a market, though, for people to go visit Arizona, right?
Yeah,
if you're
going to promote it.
If you're going to go to Mesa instead
if you've got an autistic family member, that's the best place. That and Myrtle Beach are the 2 best places you can go.
So that's interesting.
So just and then. And so there are other, so I'm looking at the fact that there's really, our role is really to convince people to provide the information, because that's really what people need.
That's the beginning, yeah.
You can't do more than that. You can't fix the ramps. You can't, so that's kind of what we're doing.
I just want to bring up, because this is the Sonoma Spiel. We'll talk here in Sonoma. We have Sugarloaf State Park. And it's up there on Sonoma Valley, and it's run by the Sonoma Ecology Center, a local nonprofit. And they've been doing accessible bird watching. So they have a path that you can get on motorized wheelchairs.
That's great. And
bird watching at dusk. And I thought, well, this is right up the alley. And then to your point, a lot of people will age into a disability. Like this is an inevitability. Especially bird watchers. The birds come and get you.
They're starting from a pretty late point.
Well, they are. That's what I was going to say. Most bird watchers are a little bit older. I notice as I get older, I start looking at the birds more.
Start appreciating them.
I do.
For what they do.
That's not so bad. I could be a bird. But I think that was really smart to see that, and then they're going to do these, I think, more often, because once you show the pattern can be done and you figure it out, what stops you from saying, okay, now let's do something, obviously not bird watching, but some sort of like hike for the blind or something like that? What can you do that does this, or bird listening to, I guess, in the case of the blind?
So do you have a city manager here?
We do.
Yeah. So the city manager is probably in charge of making everything accessible because they have to have an ADA coordinator.
City managers are my favorite, and they have a lot of work to do. This is my editorial. Keep it up, Sue. You good?
So but in a lot of cases, the city managers and the DMOs, the destination marketing organization,
right.
should be collaborating,
right? Because
they're terrible at marketing, and they're good at land management, but they're terrible at marketing
it's so funny.
General.
You're right. You're
and so but they should be collaborating with you,
right?
Because you can market what they're doing.
And that's like we have an accessible bike path. That was the trail. Yeah. It was a rail trail. And a lot of people go out on it. I was going to say, we have a guy called Pushpock Motors, and he has these little scooters that he both sells and does tours. But a lot of people come up here, and I can see they're looking for some way to get around without walking too much. Because when you're a rural destination, you drive or you walk. You don't have a lot of city compact stuff. But Pushpock Motors, you can go buy these little doohickey. You got to see them. They're really amazing. And I see a lot of people using them now just to get around town because they couldn't maybe walk as far. Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of neat.
Well, it's a progression to a disability. Right. So so it starts with reduced mobility and then it starts with reduced vision, reduced, and then you need, how much trouble is it for you to ask all your restaurants to create a menu with large type? Just our last podcast, we were just talking about how as we get older, which you and I are not, of course, but you get fonts and they're impossible to read. And I'm saying, so imagine if you have a real vision disability. This is ridiculous. You should have large type and make it easy to find in the sense that don't make people have to ask for it. Just say, oh, here's a if you need a larger one, here it is. So we have a Shark Tank component to our conference.
Okay.
Called, and it's called Innovatable.
Okay.
And and we basically research all these kind of contraptions, technology. Oh, like people bringing their
new ideas / businesses to you guys.
And so we have like 150 of them that we've researched, and we take 10 and bring them to our conference.
You invite the people that have this product,
right? Either through virtual, through Zoom, or they come in person. Okay. And one of the products is this thing called the talking menu, which is where you take a camera phone and you take a picture of a QR code, and it just basically it renders an audio menu.
It reads it back to you.
It reads the menu back to you. And this is something that's $500 any restaurant could afford.
You know what's going to happen, though? This is also perfect for people on dates at fancy French restaurants, and they don't know how to pronounce the words.
Yeah.
See?
It has a speech therapy component to it.
It's gonna help you say, what is this cochon you're talking about? I need some cochon. That's amazing. So did someone win that one, or did you guys?
Well, that was the winning.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah, but they had other. We had other things. There was a wheelchair that called Revolve Air wheel that actually was designed. A lot of the things are not designed by people with disabilities. They're designed by engineers who have a kind of who have seen something and just have an altruistic streak to them. Right. And so this was a wheelchair that was designed by a Ferrari designer.
Oh, really?
And a Formula One engineer, design.
Okay, right. So it just goes super fast. It just goes zipping around. Really?
It's like it folds up to something like this that you can put in
airline carry-on. Okay,
and just it folds up to a carry-on size, and you can take it on the airlines. And the reason we selected them was not only the sleek nature of it, but you can put it in the trunk. It folds up in the trunk of your car and the seat next to you.
Right.
You know, you can take it anywhere. And but the thing that I thought was really special about it was that you could rent it at an airport. You could set up an airport concession and rent it. So one of those luggage shops at the airport could rent that. You take To Me or one of the, so we were looking for products that destinations could kind of introduce to their.
I like that idea.
So, all the things we found were products that could be introduced by you to your businesses. You don't have an airport, but just the,
right. We do have the sprawling Sonoma County Airport 50 minutes from here, which has about 15 flights. You're right. It's not a very big airport. But
Santa Rosa,
just
but
that's a smart idea.
Yeah. So these we're planting ideas through these products that function as like bridges between accessibility and non-accessibility. That can make so that's what between the products and the training and the information providing.
Right.
There's a lot that can be done.
Okay.
And travel's the toy department of life. Everybody should be able to enjoy it.
Right. It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Often it is a hassle, but it should not be a hassle. Theoretically.
The hassle part of it is really the travel, the air
Yes.
travel is the hassle.
They always talk about frictionless travel, where you try to get to the point where switching from modes to get to your destination shouldn't be so painful.
Right.
We're getting there.
We're looking at end-to-end accessibility, which is frictionless accessibility is what it is.
I like this.
And just the, so anyway.
Well, I know this is really good information, and both for people who are in the travel business, but also for consumers who travel, for travelers, to know how to advocate and ask themselves, but also like the businesses should be listening to them and saying, do some training, learn about your customer base, which will be growing. You said 20% of travelers will have some kind of disability.
20% of the U.S. population has some form of disability.
Right. So
and there's a breakdown on the CDC website
of what those are. But that's 1 in 5 people. For those of you that are not math majors like myself. So that's significant, and so it makes sense for both people who are traveling to say, hey, this is normalized. This is a huge portion of the population. And also for people who provide other hotels or restaurants or transportation.
Yeah. Restaurants.
Be ready for this.
Restaurants. It's really they all have to have accessible bathrooms, right? So just and then all they need to a lot of what they really need to know is really the furniture needs to be moved so that a wheelchair can clear it.
It seems so simple once you explain it, but it's so hard to understand unless you know.
I think the thing here is really the wineries. Yeah, in Sonoma and Napa Valley, because a lot of those wineries are not accessible, I guess.
No.
And so just so they can learn to train their staff about attitudinal training,
right?
And that kind of and that's something that you could probably do.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great insight.
Something that as an initiative.
I'm already thinking about this, Jake. That's a great point.
And because a lot of the complaints that I see are about wineries not being accessible. Yeah. Just the tasting rooms,
right?
And have steps, and they don't have have, and so there's there aren't provisions, and wine tastings has become some sort of a kind of an activity that people who are wine lovers really they look at this as, okay, this is like, this can be your Grand Canyon, if you have a lot of wine tasting.
No, this is a fun thing. People come here. So you're right. The tasting rooms.
And you might want to do a guide to accessible tasting rooms.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just survey them and just...
Look, this is how businesses start. Good job, Jake. This is smart. Yeah. I really like this, actually, and I'm going to add that to our list of attributes that are sortable on our website.
Yeah.
And then we have a...
I can show you some websites on how to design the page and the whole thing.
I like that. And I do say, we do have a lot of tasting rooms around the plaza that are accessible, because they're inside storefronts and things like that usually. But I can also see how the ones that are more rural and are based on like working ranches, they might not think that way
Right.
Especially when they're building it 100 years ago. So
Right.
it's like maybe how to adapt it or change some of the
Or
experiences.
some of the products that they could have that
Exactly.
that are inexpensive that they can use to to help people. If you show people that that you want to help them, they're like very appreciative.
Yeah, well, it's hospitality.
They're so they feel so invisible when they travel. I mean, I've become. I see this as a mission now for us, and people like you, once you get involved in it, there's we're marketing our travel assets and our destinations, but this adds a layer of purpose-driven marketing to it that you wouldn't normally have.
Right.
And I think I think you've got the the sort of the position and the personality skills to rally people around a cause like this, and really do it around next July, which is, Disability Pride Month.
It is. Okay.
Rally
Good
around
to know. Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
And that's what we're recommending. And if you want to expose blind assets to people who are blind, do it around White Cane Day. Do it the next year. And
so you guys do you have a calendar of this sort of stuff for information?
Of course,
okay.
Yeah. No, we have a whole we have this whole Destination Ally program, step by step.
Let me make sure. And then just to kind of to wrap up here, that if people want more information, if you are in the travel business, you can go to your website, TravelAbility, one word, .net.
Right.
Right. TravelAbility. Are you saying TravelAbility? TravelAbility?
TravelAbility.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know. It's like one of these.
Is it a tongue twister?
It's like yeah. No, it's good. TravelAbility.net is all the information, and you do have a summit, I think, for people who are in the travel business can attend.
We have this thing called the Emerging Market Summit, which covers accessibility, sustainability, and DE&I.
Okay.
And I've been trying to kind of Grecian formula accessibility into DE&I for the last 3 years.
Okay.
Using that approach every an inch every year.
Right.
And just and suddenly it's in there.
Got it.
So we're sort of mixing these three niches that don't get much attention at other shows.
into one show.
Other than an hour panel.
Right. And this again, you are kind of known, at least I've known you through eTourism Summit and North American Journeys, and people who aren't in the travel business don't know that Jake Steinman on the Sonoma Spiel is kind of a big deal. But Jake, thanks for coming on. I'll make sure everyone knows TravelAbility.net for more information. And then if they want more information about Sonoma Valley, of course, go to SonomaValley.com, and we have things to do, see and do. And it sounds like I'm going to have to add an accessibility page quickly. And I thank you for pointing out that I think I'm lacking that right now. We're in the middle of redoing our website.
Oh, good.
So, and a lot of accessibility stuff's now more accessible for us, cost-wise and things, which is great.
Yeah.
But I will make sure I add that. So, Jake, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
And we'll see you around Sonoma soon. Thanks.
Okay. Speak to you later.